Life is amazing.
Okay, we're ready for takeoff. Fasten your seatbelts. So we'll back up a little bit. And that will start here on page 198. Ois Hey. This is the line that begins with the words Al Hanisyanis V'hine. So up until this point, we spoke about the difference between how to elevate the spark in different things in the world and how we elevate the spark in the soil. When we elevate the spark in different articles, items, food or clothing or housing, when we elevate that spark, it's by engaging whatever it is, whether it's the food or the clothing or the place that I'm in, by doing it the right way and dealing with it the right way, I elevate it. And the Sayan is by dismissing and by ignoring, by not giving it any substance. And that's how I elevate the spark. And the reason for this difference is because the spark in food that's not kosher or similar things has true substance. It's really something, and I have to elevate it and transform it. The spark in a soyin has no real substance. Its substance is that it could fool me. If I don't let myself be fooled, then it doesn't have any substance. Now he spells it out. So I have one more extra here. Now he spells it out. The second point that he brought out was that because of this, the way to deal with an Nisayan is not through deep meditation, working on developing feeling, and having some sort of a dialogue in my head, answering questions and giving answers, but by totally dismissing and ignoring. And that's when the other side, the spark of klipa that's in the nitzutz, becomes non-existent. Because when I have a dialogue in my head and I'm answering the questions, that alone is giving it substance.
So if we're going to speak to someone about problems, only get it bigger and bigger. Like
No, not necessarily. I can talk about a problem and I talk about how do I correct the problem. Depends what kind of problem it is. Let's say a person has a problem that they they feel that they're lazy. They don't do the things that they're supposed to do. How do I become stronger? Someone can give you techniques, ideas, tools, how to handle it. Nothing wrong with that.
But it sounds like if it works with to test nisayon, maybe it also works with different things. Like if it's not mitzvah and it's
For example, if someone doesn't feel good, and you say, okay, I'm not going to pay any attention, it gets worse the next day. All you have to do is go to a doctor, take antibiotic, and you'll be fine.
yeah.
So in that case, you can't just ignore it. There's something there, and there's something to do to correct it. If someone has a business and they're not making money, they can't say, oh, this is an assignment. Don't worry, don't change anything, don't improve anything. Do the same thing you did yesterday and the day before and be fine. And before you know it, there's a big lock on your door. So of course, there are certain issues that you can sit down and work it out.
Something spiritually. Like.
Oh, that's what I said. It depends on what it is. The most important thing is to know what principle do you apply to which thing. In other words, sometimes you have to deal with it, and sometimes you have to ignore it. So generally speaking, nisayon means something there that's fighting me and fighting my relationship with Hashem. And that's the kind of a thing that we're supposed to ignore. But there are a lot of other things in life, not in that category. And those are the kind of things that I could sit down, think about it, work it out. Let's say a person feels, I have no chayas, I have no excitement when it comes to davening. So there's something that I can do to think about it and go over my head, understand the value of davening, the purpose of davening, and that'll help me develop that kind of feeling. I don't feel sensitive to a person that's hurting. So there's a way to think about it. Obviously, to feel that sensitivity. But when there's an assignment, those are the times that you have to be ignoring completely. So again, if I have when I want to have love for Hashem, it's through my seichel. I have to think about Hashem, learn about Hashem, meditate on His greatness, allow those feelings to penetrate the heart. So I'm working with my head and my heart. When it comes to nisayon, it's not the time to engage your head or your heart. It's a time to just be very strong and say, I'm not budging. This is the way it's going to be. There's nothing in the world that's going to stop me from doing what I need to do. And just this force, strength, and then ignoring the forces that are trying to stop me, and then it'll get out of my way. The reason is because when you start having a dialogue in your head and you say, this person's trying to convince me not to do something good. I start thinking, well, he gave me this reason, I can answer him this answer. But then he'll give me this question, so I can answer another answer. Even though you're answering and you're finding a reason why you're doing the right thing, but you're giving substance to that force that's trying to fight you. It's not a subject that everybody's familiar with all the details, but we know the Rebbe has a very strong position about not giving back land to terrorists, because when terrorists demand something and you give them, they only want more, and they put on more pressure. And when the Rebbe spoke about this in 1967, there were a lot of different opinions about it. Today, anyone who only wants to be honest looks back and sees what happened. The more Israel gave, the more pressure they got, and the bigger the terrorists became. It's as clear as day. Gush Katif is one of the biggest display centers where you see we gave away a whole piece of land, threw out 10,000 people, men, women, and children, uprooted cemeteries. And what did we get? Rockets and missiles and bombs and all sorts of wonderful things. So the Rebbe's opinion is not only don't give back land, don't even sit down to have a meeting about whether we should or not give back land. Just to say, there's nothing to talk about. There is no land that's going back. We have talk about peace, yes, but land going back, there's nothing to talk about. Why? The mere fact that you say, I'm ready to negotiate, that already gives them strength. And once they get strength, they attack even stronger. And that's the way it works in my own Yitzhahara too. If I say to my Yitzhahara, okay, let's have a discussion about this. And he goes, okay, got it. Let's have a discussion. And he starts at one question, and that doesn't work. Within a Sayan, you have to represent, you have to display strength. You have to be rock solid in your stand. There's nothing to talk about. There's no two ways about it. In the Friedrich Rebbe Sichos, there's an expression where he uses in Yiddish. I don't know how, maybe somebody here could help me how to translate that. There's an English quote or phrase, expression that's similar to, but in Yiddish it is, Ozei und nicht anders. Mrs. Horowitz, any idea?
It's like this.
That I know, but I mean,
You want to know?
in Yiddish it's a sort of a,
Yeah, it sounds more professional. Okay.
there must be something in
No
English.
way, Jose.
What?
No way, Jose.
No way, Jose. Maybe, okay. But I mean, as they understand this in Yiddish means this is the way it is, and it's not negotiable even to discuss any other way. So let's look inside again. We got to do this again. So we're the line that begins with al. It's about, let's count 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 lines from the top. And with Dihine, Dihine, Kol Yisrael Ma'aminim B'nei Ma'aminim, all Yidden believe, and it's inherent of the neshama that we have this belief. B'amuna pshuta, simple faith. Simple faith means we don't need to philosophize to arrive to this conclusion, but it's just natural for us to believe. Who is Baruch Levade? Who Ezel Aseh? I didn't discuss it yesterday, but maybe we'll talk about this today. How could it be that it's a natural belief? If a person's intelligent, especially the smarter the person that is, the more you sort of demand to understand things before you engage, before you get involved. So what does it mean that it's just natural to believe without even thinking? Like a child, for a child it's natural to believe because they don't have the intelligence that demands an explanation. But an adult, and a brilliant adult, a genius, that everything else in life, they study, they research, they analyze, they understand. How could it be that I just naturally believe I don't even need proof, I don't need seichel? Where does that come from?
We are part of, right?
What?
Because we are, like for Jewish, right?
Yeah.
Because we're part of.
It's in the neshama, right? But how does it come in the neshama? So there's many Maimorim that explain. Again, this is just part of it, and we learned about it last year. Those who were here last year when we were learning about Pesach, Amunah, and so on. You don't need Amunah when you see something. I don't need Amunah that there are 4 walls in this room. I see it. I don't need Amunah that it's there now because I see it. You need Amunah for things you don't see, and that's when you need to believe that it's actually true. The neshama, before it comes down to this world, sees godliness, just like we experience physical, material things around us. That's how the neshama l'mayla, up there, before it comes down, sees godliness and hears godliness, and it's surrounded totally by things that are godly. And the neshama up there doesn't need amunah to see that it's there, because to know that it's there because it sees it. The issue is when the neshama comes down this world, then everything is hidden, and over here is where we need amunah. So Chassidus explains that when the neshama comes down, not the entire neshama comes down to this world. There's a part of my neshama that still remains in Shemayim. And that part of my neshama is no different than it was before. There's a part of my neshama that doesn't change. There's a deeper dimension of my neshama that doesn't change. And the part that does change, that goes into the body and sort of becomes part of this physical materialistic world, is a very small part of the neshama. Not only it's a part, it's a very small part. For the most part, the neshama is still up there, meaning the neshama sees and hears and feels and experiences everything that's going on in the spiritual realm. And the Baal Shem Tov explains with this something which is in Pirkei Avos, which on the surface is very difficult to understand. It says that every day there's a heavenly voice that comes out of Har Sinai, and the heavenly voice announces and says, Shuvu bonim shevavim, which means my children who are going wild, going astray, return to Hashem. Or there's another heavenly voice that comes out every day and says, Oy lehem malbeinu shel Torah. Woe to those people that embarrass the Torah, that insult the Torah by not studying Torah. And the Baal Shem Tov asks the obvious question, who is this voice for? If it's for tzaddikim who hear heavenly voices, they don't need it. If it's for people that are not tzaddikim and they need it, but they don't hear it. So what's the point? So Baal Shem Tov says, yes, it's for the people that need it. The question, we don't hear it, the answer is, I don't hear it by my neshama that's up there, that part of my neshama that's up there hears it and sees it and gets excited when it hears this voice. And when it gets excited, that excitement trickles through and gets projected into the part of the neshama that I'm conscious of, and I will feel feelings of tshuva as a result. And the Baal Shem Tov explains that sometimes a person finds that they get a feeling of tshuva or a feeling of just upliftedness, inspired, and they don't even know how to explain it. Like, what happened? Why did this happen to me today? It's not that I was learning something, meditating on something. It just came to me. I just woke up in the morning and I feel that way. Or it's just the middle of the day and something happened and I feel uplifted and inspired. The answer is the neshama up there hears it, and the neshama gets excited, and it's a deeper part of me, and that gets my conscious part of neshama excited. Just like you understand things when you study basic psychology, that there are things that affect us because in the subconscious there's a certain fear. In the subconscious there's a certain joy. And sometimes people feel those feelings, but they don't know where it's coming from. They go to a therapist, sits down, analyzes and figures out the reason why you're afraid of this, or the reason why you're attracted to this, is because of this is going on subconsciously. This is what it is spiritually. Deep down in the neshama, there's a part of my neshama that hears all those voices and sees everything that's godly. And that's what gets me excited. So when a Jew goes to Israel and goes to the Kotel, and they get all excited, they get all emotional, they don't exactly see godliness there, they say whoa. But the neshama that's higher sees the godly light that's shining there. And that part of my neshama is exploding. And when that explodes, it also affects the part of the neshama that I'm conscious of. So I feel something, I don't know what it is, and I try to figure out what it is, and that's how a person, sometimes people don't do that, they just let it go and nothing happens. But if they don't, and they follow up, they'll realize that this is about my connection to Hashem. So if the neshama up there sees godliness, it doesn't need amunah. It's just simple. Like to us, it's simple that there's a wall here. So that that knowledge of Hashem, which is natural, that flows to the conscious part of the neshama. And that's where we get the simple faith in Hashem, that it's absolutely clear, without a doubt, because there's a part of me that actually sees it. And even though I don't see it, but I feel the certainty as a result of that. Just like you feel fear, you feel other feelings. In this case, we feel the certainty of Hashem as a result of the fact that my neshama up there sees Hashem. Follow? But then the question is, so then every single Jewish person should have amunah in Hashem. So the answer is, there's a plumbing problem. The plumbing problem is that it doesn't always flow from up there into the conscious part. There are things that happen where we sort of block that flow, and therefore we don't feel it consciously. The connection is there, and everything goes, but for us to feel it consciously, the flow has to be without anything blocking. And that's sometimes when you do a mitzvah, or you go to a holy place, a person comes to the Rebbe, these are the kind of things that help unblock. And when it's unblocked, that natural amunah rises to the surface. We feel it. So again, Kol Yisrael Maminim B'nei Maminim B'Munah Pshuta. Every Yid has it in them, naturally and inherently to believe, and the belief is emunah pshuta, without dialogue, without philosophizing, just with pashtus. Who is Baruch Levada, who in Zalase, Hashem is the only one, there's nothing else. He's the only one that makes everything happen. He created the universe, he leads the universe, he runs everything in the Torah. That's not in the world, that's number one. And the Torah and the mitzvahs, nitzchiyim heima. Torah mitzvahs are eternal. This is something which is valuable and eternal, and it's forever. Everything else in the world is secondary and is very temporary. In the betake of this force, he also will stand strong to observe Hashem's mitzvahs without challenging and questioning Hashem's midas, the way Hashem does things. Like the question that comes to a person's mind, why did Hashem do this? That specifically in this time, in this generation, which is the hills and the footsteps of Mashiach, which means neshamas, nemuchis, our neshamas are the lowest of all the neshamas. Just like in the body, the feet, and especially the heels, is the lowest part of the body. When we say lowest, we don't mean low just physically, but low also means in the body, the way we measure higher and lower, is that those parts of the bodies that have greater capacity, like the brain, the heart, the eyes, those faculties that are just much more sophisticated, that's higher. And the feet is much less, just has movement. And the heels have even less chayus. Like I mentioned yesterday, the part of the body that's the least sensitive. That's why we can walk on it and step on it, because we don't feel it the same way we feel other parts of the body. The least sensitive is the heel. And therefore, our neshamas are called ikvas of the Mashiach. We have souls that are the lowest in terms of spiritual awareness and spiritual sensitivity. So to us neshamas, that we're so low, that's why Hashem gives such tests. Hashem gives us nisyonos, gedolos, kelus, such huge tests. Why is Hashem doing that? You probably know there's an author, his name is Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan, he wrote a lot of books. I think he has a book that the title is If I Was God. Because everybody thinks about that. If I was God, I would have run the world a little bit different. I would do things differently. There's actually a story like that with Rabbi Yitzchak of Berditchev, that he was sitting with his students around the table, and he turned to one of the students and says, tell me, if you are God, how would you run things in this city? If I was God, well, I would make sure that this woman who unfortunately lost her husband, shouldn't have happened. I would make sure that this person who has no parnasa, they should have parnasa. This person's house collapsed, the house shouldn't collapse. And goes on through the whole shtetl, all the good things he would do. And he turned to another student, now, how would you run this town if you were? And he gives his description. He goes around the table. Then one of the students says to him, if I can ask the question to the Rebbe himself, and if you were God, what would you do? So he says, if I was God, I'd be running the world precisely the way it's running right now. And then I would know that's what has to happen. So therefore, when a person comes to the question, why did Hashem do this? Which means my seichel, my intellect, my logic doesn't get it. On the day of Barur, the person knows with absolute certainty, Kiboy Bochar Havaya, Hashem chose him, meaning the person who's thinking. Lahorid Nishmasa, Hashem chose me to send my neshama down to this world. The Mokam's there, in this place, in this time in history, and it's for my benefit. My neshama needs that. Which means everything about a neshama, the way it's set up, the time that they're born, the place that they're born, the parents they're born to, the circumstance they're born in, all this is divinely designed. It's not just random. Hashem doesn't have a sack of neshamas and shakes it and just fall down different times in history in different places. Everything is custom made, where Hashem has a mind specifically to create this person, this neshama in this time, because that has to do with their shlichus in this world. Oh, and therefore, who is Baruch Nasan Be'Kayv, is Lamed Ben Asayin. Certainly Hashem gave me the strength to stand against this test. Not only I have the strength to stand up to the test and not be weakened by it, it's even more than that. Hashem gives me the strength that I can actually add more light as a result of the test rather than becoming weakened by the test. The famous saying, which is also from Medrash, which means Hashem doesn't come to his creation with demands that are overwhelming. The Medrash says a king demands certain things of his subjects. Very often the king demands things of his subjects according to his capacity, not according to their capacity. And of course, we don't even have to think about kings. We find this on a very personal level. Friends, spouses, roommates, that if something's easy for you, you expect the other person to do it. It doesn't even dawn on you. Maybe for you this is easy, and for them it's not. And you're upset. Why did you do it? It's nothing. And the other person, for them, it's not so nothing. So there are kings that they demand things of their subjects, and because for them it's something easy, so therefore they demand it of their subjects. Hashem is Hashem, infinite being with infinite powers, but yet when it comes to us, he demands of us according to our capacity, not according to his capacity. When he rewards us according to his capacity. So it says, when he demands something of us, Hashem measures each and every person and knows what their capacity is, and he measured according to their capacity, and that's what he expects of them. When he rewards us, he rewards it according to his capacity and gives us eternal reward. When a person does things according to their capacity, as much as they could possibly do, Hashem doesn't demand of a person to jump on a roof. Sometimes what's needed is to jump off a roof. But to jump on a roof, Hashem doesn't demand that of us because it's impossible. So when a person does what they can do, I do things, when I do it, I just do whatever I feel I can do. Then they'll find that Hashem gives them kayach, and that kayach is beyond nature, and they're able to do things that they never imagined that they could possibly do. We know this story in Chumash, famous story of Moshe Rabbeinu, that he was in a basket, and Paro's daughter came to the water. She saw the basket. So the mother says she stretched out her hand, and Hashem made a miracle because her hand couldn't reach the basket. He made a miracle that the hand stretched, came much longer, and she reached the basket and pulled it in. Okay, it's a miracle. But there's a question here. Why did she stretch out her hand in the first place? If something is 20 feet away from me, I'm not going to stretch out my hand. I might scratch my head to figure out how to get it, but there's no point stretching out my hand. So the general answer to that question is, she said like this: there's a baby in a basket. I want to save this child. I'm going to do the maximum of what I can do. Stretched out her hand as far as she can. Then Hashem did something above nature. Her hand became longer and she brought the child in. So not always do we see a miracle of that, open miracle, but it means in life, Hashem says to us, you do what you can do and I'll do the rest. And the rest could be above nature. And of course, sometimes we recognize that it's above nature, and sometimes we don't. But Hashem tells us, you have the strength. I gave you the strength to be strong and not to bend. So if Hashem created me in this time, in this place, Hashem gave me the strength to overcome kol hamaniyas v'ikuvim, all the things that are blocking and preventing me from going forward. By doing that, I am fulfilling Hashem's purpose in creating me and in general creating the whole world. In other words, based on what he said before, being that I believe that only Hashem is in charge, and being that I believe that Hashem is the one that makes everything happen, so therefore I believe that he is the one that chose that I should be here in this time and these circumstances. He created these circumstances. If he created these circumstances, he gave me the strength that I can do it. And once I know that I can do it, I go forward and I have the strength to overcome it. And by doing that, I'm fulfilling the purpose of creation. What does the purpose of creation mean? On the surface, it means I'm fulfilling the purpose of why I was created personally. But the Baal Shem Tov actually explains it's much deeper than that. And he says that every single person has a mission. We're all here for a reason. And everything is precisely designed by Hashem. There's something specific that I need to accomplish. I'm a piece of the puzzle. But just like Begashmis, when you put each piece of the puzzle in, the whole puzzle is complete. Same thing spiritually. That when I do something and I do what I need to do, not only does that mean that I'm completing the mission which I was created, but I contribute to completing the general mission of the whole entire creation by me doing that part that I'm meant to do. In fact, Baal Shem Tov goes a step further and says that's also Hashgacha Pratis. This is the part that you can get dizzy just thinking about it. But the Baal Shem Tov says that when there is a blade of grass on the ground and the blade of grass shakes back and forth, it's Hashgacha Pratis, which means Hashem specifically wants this blade of grass that's in Brooklyn on Eastern Parkway between Kingston and Albany, and it's right in the middle of the block, address 825 Eastern Parkway. Go look for grass over there, but there is a blade of grass. And when that blade of grass moves back and forth 322 times, there's a reason why Hashem made that happen. Wow. But then he says, not only there's a reason why Hashem made that happen, this that happened is something which contributes to the entire purpose of why the whole world was created. So therefore, he's mashlim kabon el yoinu. So this means it's mainly about me working with myself. It's not about working with the spark. All I need to do is le'orer koyach tekev nekudas nafsh. I have to bring to the surface that force, that rock solid yechida that I have, that nekuda, that point which we call the pintal yid, to come out on the surface. Lamed the nisayon, to stand up to this test. This kasher b'limud Torah, to bind myself and to commit myself to Torah study and to observing the mitzvahs. Sometimes people make deals with the Yetzer Hara, and they say, you know what? I won't learn any Torah a few days, but after that, don't bother me. Like you make a deal with children. You know what? I'll let you be up late tonight, but after that, tomorrow, you're going to sleep on time. Sure. The next day, you promised yesterday. No, I don't want to go to sleep. But you promised yesterday. I don't want to go to sleep. That's how the Yetzer Hara is. You promised yesterday that if I eat this, if I do this, you're not going to bother me anymore. Sure. It doesn't work that way. You don't make any deals with it. Yetzer Hara has to know that I'm solid, rock solid. I don't budge from my commitment. And then he knows that it's a lost case. He backs off. And that's what it means when it says in the pasuk, how beautiful are your tents, Yaakov. And that's referring to the yeshivas and the shuls, which means by studying diligently and being invested diligently in the words of Torah, by going to learning by day and by night. What does the second half of the pasuk mean? Your tents where you dwell. That's referring to Avas Reim, the love between one person and another. The kinyan amidas tevis, acquiring good midas. That we see this in the way people interact with each other, relate to each other, and that comes mainly from learning pnimis Torah, certain warmth and a certain love for each and every one of us. Like the Tzemach Tzedek once asked the Alter Rebbe, what did he want to accomplish with Chassidus? There's more than one incident like that, but at one time the Alter Rebbe said he wanted that the Chassidim should live like one family. In other words, that by learning Chassidus and having a deeper understanding of what a neshama is, what every yid is, and how precious everybody is, now to look at the good in every person, that'll help acquire midas taivas, love for one another. Yeah, when you have these two things, the learning and the davening, and the midas that are refined midas and good midas, that becomes our banner, and that gives us the strength to stand up to the test. That we can stand up to all the tests. Again, this mimer was said, what?
I just want to ask you, so if you, I think I asked this maybe before, but if you know it's a test because it's something coming to interrupt your connection to Hashem, so you say to yourself, I know this is a test, but then you're not supposed to know it's a test, really, because then if you pass the test, it's like you knew it was a test. So does it matter that you know it's a test?
We know it's a test because that's what it says in Torah, that it's a test. It would matter if Hashem would come to you and say, I want to tell you something, what's going to happen soon is a test. Then it wouldn't be a test anymore. But that itself is a test, that I should figure out that it's a test. And if I figure it out, I'm passing the test.
Oh.
Next door, they do fire. We just did it yesterday. It's a fire test. I think we better change the subject here.
It was always test. Then it was real and no one.
We had an incident here in the 1980s. You know, you have a siren that you hear every Friday for candlelight reading. But there was a time when whatever would come out to Fabrain, no one expected it, no one knew that's going to happen. So in order to alert everyone that there's a Fabrain, they would run the siren. Everybody knew that, man, everybody ran to 770. There was a student here that came from somewhere in the Midwest. And she knows when you hear a siren, that means there's a tornado or something. And you run for cover. So she heard the siren, she ran to the dorm, and she said, everybody's running out of the house into the street. It was our first time here. Then, no, there's certain Fabrangers which are designated. Everybody knows this day the Rebbe Fabrangers. There were times the Rebbe would go to the Ohel and come back and says, tonight will be Fabrangers. In other words, there's something which wasn't planned, but for some reason the Rebbe saw there's a need to make it Fabrangers. And then they would set the alarm. Again, remember, this is before cell phones, before internet, before these things.
Special.
Okay, before we do the last ice, what I want to do is go back and review these 5 ices. And the review that we have here on a few pages. On one page, we have the terms and phrases. And that's on page 16 and page 17. And then 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, we have the question on each page, 23. So we have a few minutes. We'll get started today. And tomorrow there's no class. I don't know if you all know, but tomorrow, because we're going on the Shabbaton, the woman class here. So the next class will be Monday, Mirz Hashem. So let's start with the terms. These are the words that I underlined in the mimer as we were learning it. We have 5 minutes. I'll give you 2 minutes and then we'll take 2 minutes. Write down on page 16 from number 1 to number 8 what those terms mean. And then we'll do it together. These terms are from Ois Beis, from the second chapter in the Maimer. The Maimer, we don't call it chapter, we call it Ois.
Does ice translate to chapter or what does it translate?
Ois means actually a letter. If you look at the Maimer, it says Aleph, Beis. Some of them have it, some don't. But it means letter Aleph, letter Beis.
That's the lingo
In the Maimer, yeah. Ois Aleph, Ois Beis. In Tanya, for example, we'll say chapters. In other sword, we'll say chapter. In the Maimer, we'll say Ois.
I can write the same, because I don't have what to write. Enough.
Okay. 2 minutes left, so let's start. Number one, how would you translate Hashras Hashchina?
When Hashem here.
The dwelling of the Shekhinah. But let's remember, isn't Hashem here all the time? Isn't he everywhere? So Hashras Hashchina means when Hashem is in a place in a more revealed way. That's what it means, the Shekhinah dwells there. Das.
When you give me the space,
When I remove my space, then Hashem can be more revealed. Yeah. Das.
feel.
Okay. So Das of Hashem means to know Hashem, but in a way that the knowledge penetrates my mind. It registers deeply in my mind, as if I see it. That's what Das is. Chochmah is understanding one way, Bin is understanding another way. Das is the part of the brain that allows the information to sink in, to register and penetrate. Elokim b'gematria hateva, what does that mean?
Like the way Hashem controls the world, and we can understand by the second, like when he does something, like by the natural way.
So what does it mean Elokim b'gematria hateva? That how does Hashem affect the world in nature through the name Elokim? That's what it means. There's two names. There's Havaya and there's Elokim. The fact that Elokim is b'gematria 86 and Teva is b'gematria 86 means that Hashem's life force and energy to influence the world in a natural way comes from the name Elokim. Number 4, L'mayla Mahateva means above nature, and that's the name Havaya. Nitzutz Eloki, Shtei Avodim Boyin Shtei Batim.
Where does that come from?
This phrase,
Yeah.
Sefer Yitzir, that's the source.
I just can't find it in the.
Oh, in the Maimer?
Yeah.
It's in Ois Beis. And it's on, what does it mean with, you can build a house with 2 rocks? It's on page 194, and it's underlined 2, 4, 6 lines from the top. Page 194.
You don't have page one.
Yeah, we're missing on page 193,
You give to us when it's exactly not here, so you don't have
There's a
to.
missing page, yes.
You're missing a page,
I'm
and we went through class and you didn't tell me you're missing a page? Oh, no. You don't have papers. Nobody has no one.
I have page 94.
Okay, I'm gonna copy it. Sorry. Very uncomplaining students. Okay. Someone told me that he came to shul early in the morning after the first night of the Seder Pesach, and his friend told him that last night The Haggadah went so quick, I never had it like that before. Later I noticed there were 10 pages missing. Number 7, Tzirufei Oisius. What does that mean? It's also on that page. Tzirufei Oisius means the combination of the letters. Remember we learned you can have 2 letters, 3 letters, but if you combine them in a different order, then it means a different content. Pneumius haratzon, inner will, which means there's an external will and there's an internal will. External will means something that I want superficially, and internal will means something I want that is coming from a deeper place within me.
Could you repeat number 5 and 6? Yeah, what? I'm not sure. Explain
6, it means that with 2 letters you can make 2 words. It's a figurative way of saying with 2. That's why the purpose was to bring out that stones are like compared to letters. Rather, letters are compared to stones. Because the Sefer Yetzirah says with 2 letters you can make 2 words. With 3 letters you can make 6 words. With 4 letters you can make 24 words, right? And it goes on and on. Okay.
Rabbi, number 5, please, again.
What is that?
Can you repeat number 5?
Number 5. Number 5 is which one? Nitzitz Elokei is a godly spark. Yeah.